Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my Somatic Therapies series, and this is episode 3. So, today I'm talking about the role of compassion in these somatic therapies. Compassion is really important because if you don't feel safe, which compassion helps to foster an environment that is of safety, then it's really hard to drop in, whether it's you, the practitioner, or if you're working with a client that has had trauma. The 3 things that they need to be able to heal that trauma is 1, awareness, 2, acceptance, and then 3, safety. So I find that really finding a lot of compassion and tapping into your empath abilities, which pretty much all healers that I know, and certainly I am, are empaths, even though that word is thrown around a bit much. Empath does not mean that you don't take responsibility and accountability for your feelings, by the way. So you can choose to tap into someone, you can choose to back up. And if you find that there's an inability to be able to tell the difference between the two, then there's enmeshment. So you need to kind of back off a little bit, get yourself straight, and then come back to it. Otherwise, you will drive yourself crazy and burn yourself out. Um, Compassion is really important because at any given day, as a practitioner, as a healer, you're going to feel differently. And I know for me, I have had struggles with health and with digestive issues because of my past. If you read my first book or if you've been listening to this podcast from the beginning, you'll know that I had an eating disorder for 12 years, a bulimia, which is a particularly violent eating disorder. And, I was very lacking in compassion, and it kept me trapped in that trauma. And I repeated the cycle over and over again because I kept shaming myself and I couldn't find that sweetness and love and forgiveness for myself and allowing myself to make mistakes. So compassion starts with you. So this is one of those things where it's like very important to do the inner work on yourself, especially if you're working with other people, because that's one of, I find at least, that you can't sincerely fake compassion. At least for me, I can sniff it out. And I think that other people can too. And if you think about like sniffing it out, meaning their nervous system, their heart is going to be able to tell if you're legit or not, is like the greatest detective ever. And so having compassion and allowing for mistakes and, allowing yourself to forgive you in any given moment is really important when using these somatic therapies. So once you create the safety with the compassion, you want to be able to, drop into your body. And then when you're dropping into your body, trying to keep a sense of presence, trying to keep a sense of focus within. So what I find during sessions is sometimes like I'll be asking questions and then I'll ask, okay, how do you feel? What happened here? Where do you feel that in your body? And I can tell when my people go up into their head and they leave because their eyes are pointing all over the place, or their body gets tense suddenly. They start making certain facial expressions. And so having that compassion allows you to be tolerant, allows you to be patient, and allows you to lovingly guide people back in, right? Because they're having their experience in their body. You're having your experience in your body. And even if, like, let's say you don't have a client, let's just say that this is just for you. If you're not compassionate on this path of healing and you make a mistake, what's going to happen is you're going to berate yourself. You're going to put yourself down. And when you do that, you're going to disconnect from your inner wisdom. When you do that, it is nearly impossible to heal, and you're probably going to be creating more samskaras, as you would say, sort of like groove patterns in the mind that exist in the body and the nervous system. So a compassion practice that I have been practicing lately is to take one hand over the heart and then one hand on the belly, and just to feel the weight of your hands over your heart, over your belly. Breathe against your hands and actually feel. So this is somatic in nature because you're feeling. Just feel your own loving touch on your body. Feel your clothes on your skin. Trace that with your mind's eye. Feel your blood pulsing through your veins. Feel your heart beating in your chest. If you can make contact with these subtle sensations in your body that are constantly going, like you always have a heartbeat, right? You always have your blood pulsing through your vein. Probably a lot of the times, unless you're a nudist, you have clothes on. It depends on the time of the day for me. But, if you can draw into these sensations, again, that gives some competition for the mind, which a lot of times is unchecked and is just hopping like a monkey from branch to branch. And so if you can draw into sensation with compassion, with love, then it sort of like calms your nervous system so that you can do inner work. So in this series so far, I've talked about nervous system regulation and the role of the nervous system, the polyvagal theory. I've also talked about somatic therapies and why they're important, how you can use them, and the role of touch and some of the other techniques like rubbing the hands, touching the body. So if this is the first podcast you're listening to in the series of 3 so far, then you can go back and listen to the first other 2 that kind of fill in the blanks for you. But somatic therapies are, it's huge right now. It's certainly buzzwords, somatic therapies. Yoga has a lot of somatic elements to it because it's a feel type therapy. But somatic therapies deal a little bit more concentrated with the emotional and mental aspects, which I've been doing for years. And yoga, even though we do address those things, the standard, yoga class might not necessarily, especially in the West, the yoga class would be a little bit more aimed towards the physical, maybe the energetic body because of the breath work. And so the somatic therapies kind of brings it all together to where you're addressing the mind, you're addressing the emotions, and you're addressing the body together by regulating the nervous system and being able to drop into your body and to actually feel. And so compassion also creates a backdrop that allows us safety to be able to feel whatever uncomfortable emotions we may have been repressing and kind of pushing down. If we've not been taught how to feel these things, compassion in the background helps to be like almost like a little padding around whatever emotion. I use this technique I developed called the dropper technique, where I help clients to create that compassion or that joy, and then one drop at a time will start to bring in the emotion that they're resisting, whether it be anger or shame or guilt. And again, with the humming vibration of compassion and love, allow them to feel little drops, just a tiny little micro dose of that emotion, and be able to like kind of pull it apart and split apart the atoms and the molecules, and then go back into a state of homeostasis. Doing this is compassionate because it's bit by bit by bit. As a coach, I've gotten much more compassionate over the years because I've had a compassion practice myself. Whereas when I used to coach people, I knew how to get to the answers, but I was like a little rough and tumble. So we would get there, but it was like a little bit rough, a little bit like full contact, Erin. And so giving yourself little bite-sized versions of these emotions and building up the confidence with like tiny little bits. It's almost like training wheels on a bike, or they have these little things when the kids are skating in the roller rink. It almost looks like a walker with tennis balls, but it's for the little kids. And I just have to say, Matt and I went to this. It was called Senior Prom last night at Kava Social, which my friends have been on this podcast. They're the owners, Sarah and Bodie. And it was a blast. Like, we dressed up like old folk, and we dressed around, and we were just complaining about our arthritis and our hips all the time. Even though I'm a yogi, so I hope that like when I'm 80, I'm gonna still be moving like I'm in my 20s. But we'll see. I have all the faith. So I hope that this podcast was useful. Again, like compassion in the background really helps us to drop into our body, to feel safe. And then if you want to bring up other emotions that are uncomfortable, it'll make it more possible for you to be able to do so. All right. Remember compassion, love, namaste. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to support the podcast and if it's helping you, please consider writing a review. You can go to iTunes or Google Play, go into the search bar and type in Thrive Yoga Fit Transformational Coaching, scroll down, and you can leave a review. This helps other people to find me as well as bumps us up in the search ratings. Also, this podcast is sponsor-free, so that means we don't receive anything for doing it. If you feel so inclined and this podcast is helping to support you and you want to return the favor and help to support any production costs of the podcast, feel free to give a donation to a Venmo link, Thrive Yoga Fit, or PayPal, Erin@erincoach.com. If you don't have the means, don't worry about it. We're not going anywhere. You're all good. But if you would like to give back, you can give back in those ways. Thank you so much. Namaste.